Hello guys, my name is Craig and welcome to Peri Solutions. So today we are going to look at how we solve quadratic equations by solution and by using what we call the quadratic formula. So please, if you're new to my channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any new videos. So now let's start off by attempting the first question. So for number 1, we've got x squared plus x minus 12 is equal to 0. So you want to solve for x and we want to find the solutions by using the factors. What we mean is that we know that you can factorize this. We say you multiply the first term and the last term, and then you get your minus 12x squared. And then you look for two factors that when you multiply them, they give you minus 12x squared. And when you add them, they give you an x. This would be minus 3x and 4x. If you say minus 3x times 4x, you get a minus 4x squared. And when you say minus 3x plus 4x, you get an x. So in place of x, we shall now put minus 3x plus 4x. Such that we've got x squared minus 3x plus 4x minus 12 is equal to 0. And you say we're going to split that 4-term expression into two separate expressions. So here we can factor out x. So x into x squared, that will give us an x. And x into minus 3x will give us minus 3. Then plus, here we see that 4 is common in 4x and minus 12. So factoring out 4 into 4x we get an x. Then minus 4 into 12 we get a 3. That is equal to 0. So we see that x minus 3 is common. We factor out x minus 3. Then now x minus 3 into x times x minus 3, we get an x. Then plus x minus 3 into 4 times x minus 3, we get a 4. Be equal to 0. Then now, next step would be to think about how are we going to get the x here. Because what we want to do is to solve for x. Okay, let me give you a scenario. Let's say we've got a times b, this is just a random question, a times b being equal to 0. So when a times b is equal to 0, what does this imply? This implies that for this to be true, it's either a is 0, such that a is 0, then times b being any number, such that we get a 0, or b is 0. So we're saying either a is 0 or b is 0, such that even if a is any number, as long as b is 0, then the solution will be 0. So same with this situation here. For this solution to give us, for this equation to give us 0, what must happen is that either x minus 3 should be equal to 0. So either x minus 3 is equal to 0 or x plus 4 is equal to 0. Now we can solve for x. So x is equal to, taking minus 3 to the other side, right hand side we get a 3, or x is equal to taking 4 to the other side, which is the right hand side, we get a minus 4. So x is equal to 3 or minus 4. These are the two solutions that we get for this equation. Now let's look at number 2. Allow me to erase this. Okay, so now for number 2, we want to solve for x. We've got 6x squared plus x minus 2 is equal to 0. So multiplying the first and the last terms, we get a minus 12x squared, which means the factors that we want are 4x and minus 3x. So we've got 6x squared minus 3x plus 4x minus 2 is equal to 0. Split that, we factorize that and that. Here we see 3x is common. So 3x into 6x squared, we get a 2x. Then minus 3x into 3x, we get a 1. Then plus, here we see 2 is common. 2 into 4x, we get a 2x. Minus 2 into 2, we get a 1. So we see we've got 2x minus 1, which is this. Then we just combine that to have 3x plus 2 being equal to 0. Then we say either this should be equal to 0 or that should be equal to 0. So 2x minus 1 is equal to 0, or 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. Such that x would be equal to, taking minus 1 to the right hand side, we get a 1. Then dividing both sides by 2, since we have 2x, we have x being equal to half. Or we can take this 2 to the right hand side, and then x would be equal to minus 2. But remember there is 3x, so we shall divide both sides by 3 to get x being equal to minus 2 over 3. So either x is half or minus 2 over 3. So now these are the solutions that we get after we solve for number 2. Now let's continue to look at number 3. Okay, now solve for number 3. We've got 2x squared minus 3x minus 2 being equal to 0. So we say multiplying the first and the last, we get a minus 4x squared. Since it's 2x squared times minus 2. Then the factors that we want, for which when we multiply them, they give us minus 4x squared. And when we add them, they give us minus 3x. This would be minus 4x and x. Such that in place of minus 3x, we are now putting minus 4x plus x. Such that it's now 2x squared minus 4x plus x minus 2 is equal to 0. Split that, factorize that, 2x is common. 2x into 2x squared, you get an x. Minus 2x into 4x, you get a 2. Then plus, so for x minus 2, we see that 1 is common in both. 1 into x, that's x, and then 1 into minus 2, that's minus 2. So we can combine that. We have x minus 2 is the first bracket, and the second one we've got 2x plus 1 being equal to 0. And then we say either this would be equal to 0 or that would be equal to 0. So x minus 2 is equal to 0, or 2x plus 1 is equal to 0. Such that x would be equal to, taking minus 2 to the right hand side becomes positive, or x is equal to, taking 1 to the other side becomes minus, then dividing both sides by 2. So x would be equal to 2 or minus 1 over 2. So this was for number 3. Now let's look at number 4. Allow me to erase this. Okay, so now for number 4, we've got x squared minus 3x being equal to 0. So we know that a quadratic equation, this is an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c being equal to 0. So now what we notice is that for this number 4, we don't have a constant. So it is not necessary for us to multiply the first and the last, blah, blah, blah. What we can simply do is that from here we see that x is common for this two-term expression. So we can factor out x to get x minus 3 being equal to 0. And then we can say either x is equal to 0 or x minus 3 is equal to 0. X minus 3 is equal to 0, such that x would be equal to 0 or x is equal to 3. So this is how we simply do number 4. And then with number 5, we've got 4x squared minus 1 being equal to 0. So now for this number 4, what we should see is that, sorry, for this number 5, this is the difference of two squares. Because we know that the square for 4x squared is 2x, then minus the square for 1 is 1. So we've got 2x minus 1, then 2x plus 1 being equal to 0. And then we say either this would be equal to 0 or that would be equal to 0. So 2x minus 1 is equal to 0, or 2x plus 1 is equal to 0. Such that x would be 1 over 2 or minus 1 over 2. So these are the solutions that we get for number 5. Now let's move on to look at number 6 and number 7. Okay, so from number 1 up to 5, we've just looked at how we solve quadratic equations by using the factors. So now for number 6 and 7, right, we shall use the quadratic formula. But for you to use the quadratic formula, you have to know that the quadratic formula applies for a situation whereby it is very difficult to find the two factors. Say you've multiplied your first term and your last term, and then now you look for the factors that when you multiply, they give you the term, and then when you add them, they give you the middle term. And then that will be very difficult. There, you have to use the quadratic formula. And then now, for an equation, for a quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c being equal to 0, the quadratic equation states that x would be given by minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, right, all over 2a. So minus b being the coefficient, b being the coefficient of x, and then a being the coefficient of x squared, c being our constant. So now I would like to attempt number 6 using the quadratic formula. So number 6, we are saying that 36x squared minus 17x minus 35 is equal to 0. So now, before we use the quadratic formula, we have to identify our letters A, B, and C. So in this case, our A is 36. Then our B, being the coefficient of x, is minus 17. And then our C, being the constant, is minus 35. Then now we can substitute these into the quadratic formula, such that x would be minus B, which is minus of minus 17, plus or minus the square root of minus 17 squared, minus 4, A being 36, times C being minus 35. So the square root of that, and all of this is all over 2 times A being 36 as well, such that x would be, let me write it as 17 plus or minus the square root of minus 17 squared. So 17 squared minus 4 times 36 times minus 35. That will give us a 5,329. And then if you say square root of that, we get a 73. And then over 72. Such that this is plus or minus. So x would be 17 plus 73 over 72, or 17 minus 73 over 72. So now punching that as saying 90 divided by 72, that will give us 5 over 4. So here we get 5 over 4, x being equal to 5 over 4, or 17 minus 73 divided by 72, we get minus 7 over 9. Okay, so these are the solutions of x that we get for number 6 if we had to use the quadratic formula. And as well, you will notice that it will be very hard to, of course it's possible, since we're getting exact answers, it's possible for you to factorize this. But now the numbers are a bit big now. So to now try and multiply, it will take a bit of time. So as well, let's look at number 7. Allow me to erase this. Okay, so for number 7, we've got 12 minus 5x squared minus 11x being equal to 0. So first of all, we say we identify our letters A, B, and C. A being the coefficient of x squared, in this case is minus 5. Then B being the coefficient of x, in this case is minus 11. Then C being the constant, this situation is 12. So x would be minus B, but this is minus of minus 11. So we get 11 plus or minus square root of minus 11 squared minus 4a minus 5 times c 12. Square root of that all over 2 times a, which is 2 times minus 5. This will simplify 11 squared minus 4 times minus 5 times 12. We get 361. So root of 361 will give us a 19. So here we get 11 plus or minus 19 over 2 times minus 5 plus minus 10, which implies that x would be equal to 11 plus 19 over minus 10, or 11 minus 19 over minus 10. Then x would be 30 over minus 10, that's minus 3, or minus 11 minus 19, that's minus 8, minus 8 over minus 10, that will give us 4 over 5. So x would be minus 3 or 4 over 5. Alright, so this was looking at how we solve quadratic equations by using factors, and as well by using this, what we call the quadratic formula. Please don't forget to leave a comment, drop a like, and share. Thank you.